In our previous episode, Angela and I talked about what almost stopped her from launching her podcast. And today we're talking about what happened after she finally bit the bullet and launched her show. And there is a lot to unpack here. So I will leave most of the things to Angela because this is very fresh to her. This is very firsthand. And she's not one to sugarcoat this. She's very realistic and very down to earth. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation as well. This is Say Yes to Podcasting, where solopreneurs learn how to start podcasts that attract their ideal clients and do the marketing for them. I'm your host, Anja Lordanić. Say Yes to Podcasting today. So, after you launched your podcast, Angela, what happened next? Was there something that really took you by surprise?
So, after launching the podcast, one of the biggest surprises was how quickly it became part of my routine. Before starting, I
Mm,
imagined it would feel much more complicated and stressful. And maybe it was my mistake, but I did it because it was my experience. I compared creating content for Instagram to creating content for podcast. But once I had the right process and structure that we built together, thanks to your support, it became something that I genuinely enjoyed. And I realized that podcasting doesn't have to take over your life, it can actually fit naturally into your existing schedule. You just need to put your uh, mic on, and that's it.
mm. This sounds very easy now, but when you look back, how did recording your first few episodes compare to what you expected podcasting would be?
Yeah, the first recordings were definitely a learning experience, and I had expectations that everything needed to be perfect. But I quickly realized that the most important thing is creating valuable content and connecting with the audience. And our recording sprint was a huge moment for me because recording 4 episodes in just 1 hour showed me how efficient the process could be when you have, of course, a clear plan and the right support. So it changed my perspective because I stopped seeing podcasting as something overwhelming and started seeing it as something manageable and easy for me, that I can do it wherever I am.
Mm. So, would you now say that podcasting feels very natural to you and not intimidating? And if so, why do you think that is? I have my own opinions, but I was wondering
Yeah.
how you feel.
Yeah, it started feeling natural when I stopped focusing on all the technical details and started focusing on the conversation and the value I wanted to share. As I have solo episodes, but I always, when I am recording my podcast episodes, I'm creating the picture in my head that I'm talking to someone. I'm in a conversation, and it helps me a lot. So the more I recorded, the more comfortable I became, and I realized that confidence, of course, as always, comes from practice and experience. And I think that our sprint was really crucial thing and crucial point because it canceled all the barriers that I had, in ways. Okay, you were there asking me questions, and I was there answering. And when I noticed that you can edit that content in an episode, it was like, oh really? So one thing that for me it's like just, but people probably know that, or it's something that is like nothing special, that should be like episode 5 minutes podcast episode, and that's something. And I think that today we should think more about what we are saying, and like just 5 minutes episode could be more valuable than 55-minute episode.
Mm. I recently recorded, I think, a 6 minute episode, and I was beating myself up because I wasn't sure if that was enough value for my audience that week. But I know that what I shared was really important and necessary. And that's what I had for that week. And that is enough because I want to point this out as well because you and I recently had a shared workshop in Croatian for another community where we kind of presented our story, our collaboration as a case study. And I mentioned something that has to do with experts sharing their knowledge on a podcast and not thinking that something is good enough when in reality our expectations from ourselves are really, really high and often unrealistically high. So, if we manage to put something out there, put an episode out there into the world, share it with our audience, and when we come to terms that it is good enough for ourselves and our own criteria, that means that the audience will find immense value from it
Yeah.
because we are often unrealistic. Would you agree?
Yes, completely agree. Yeah.
This is why we keep talking about 5 to 7 minute podcast episodes. And I remember you being surprised about me saying that. Like, your
Yeah.
episodes don't have to be 45 minutes long. You don't need to ramble on that long if you don't have enough to say about that topic. Because whenever I personally listen to your podcast, I get so much out of a 10-minute episode. I get some of your stories or client stories. I get your insights, I get your expertise, your like scientific
Mm.
view when it comes to the topic you're talking about. And I get so much. And that 10-minute episode, while you were recording it, maybe you thought to yourself, is this good enough? Am I sharing enough value? So we need to really be gentler to ourselves because we are way too critical way too often. So,
Yes. Yes.
speaking of the audience, of course, we keep on mentioning the audience because that's who we are creating our podcasts for, because we are creating our podcasts as part of our businesses. What would you say was a meaningful piece of feedback you've received in these few months that you've been podcasting?
Or one of the most meaningful pieces of feedback I received was from my friend, who told me that the episodes were amazing because they were short and concrete and practical, and but at the same time still like warm and full of empathy, because she knows me and we were talking a lot about everything, about work, about we had a lot of topics in common. And what touched me the most was that she said she could still hear me in the episodes, and she could hear my patience and approach and the way I genuinely want to support people. And she said also it felt like I was there to gently nudge, encourage the listener to take the first step toward their goal, to remind them that they are capable and that they don't have to wait for the perfect moment to start. So that feedback meant a lot for me. Meant a lot to me because it showed me that the podcast is not only about sharing information, it's also about creating a feeling of connection and support, which is exactly what I wanted it to be.
And this is so important to highlight because this is yet another reason why we shouldn't pretend to be someone we're not, why we shouldn't perform on our podcast. We should treat this the same as you treated this, maybe subconsciously, as if you're encouraging a friend, as if you're being a support system
Mm.
to a friend or a stranger or a future client or whoever comes across your content. Because we're talking like right now, we're talking the same way we talk to our clients and that we talk to each other. And you can like it or not, you can take it or leave it, it's okay. And whenever people have this idea of what podcasting should look like because they looked at another person who is successful, that's a road that will not be sustainable for people long term. And in our previous episode, we talked about how podcasting should be enjoyable and fun. And I need to point out here that we made this process much easier because this is an audio medium. And I remember you mentioning, like, oh, I'm recording podcast episodes as if I'm recording voice notes to my friends. And I'm
Yes.
so used to that kind of medium, but we never call them podcast episodes. So you said it perfectly. Whenever I'm recording, I'm imagining I'm speaking to someone, someone is on the
Yeah.
other side listening to me, and I'm simply sending them a voice note. It can be a 5 minute or a 15-minute voice note. It depends on the week. Would you describe it that way?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that helps us to create a really authentic content, and the
Mm.
content that
Yeah.
represents ourselves, who we really are, because we can find out a lot of information, evidence-based information about something, about the topic. I don't know, for example, like why we eat too much nowadays, or how to lose weight, or why people choose food in that way. And we can explain that in the same way, using the same information, but the difference is how we will say it. We can say all the things, all the same information, for different ways: positive, negative, positive consequences, or negative consequences. We can frame it in different ways, and it changed a lot how we talk. And especially when we record the podcast episodes, we can bring more ourselves, who we really are, and our voice is telling more than our words. I usually
Mm.
said that. So yeah.
And as we are growing as experts and as people, as our knowledge is expanded, we can talk about those same topics again a year later, 2 years later, with a different kind of lens. And we can share again immense value, but with the same topic that we recorded already a year or two ago. So that is also, I think, really important to mention because what you're sharing right now can be expanded upon in so many different ways and on so many different occasions. And
Yeah.
I want you to speak about this because it happened to us many times whenever we would record together. At the end of the recording session, you would say, I have 5 more episode ideas. And I would say, I have 5 more for you. Do you remember how this happened so often?
Yes, yes. Oh my god, yeah, it was very frequently. Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost painful because I now have too many ideas. And that's a
Yeah.
good problem to have.
Yeah, sometimes it can be like a barrier. I have a lot of ideas, but I don't know where to start with the first one. So
Mm.
this is the recipe: start with the first one, and then you will write down everything that you have in your mind, and then you will start pick the one and start with that one. Yeah.
I love how simple this piece of advice is. I have too many ideas. Start with the first one.
Yeah.
Stop messing around.
Like AI.
Yeah.
Like AI support, start with the first one. No, but it could sound like like that, but it's, yeah, we can't go on the third floor if we pass the first and the second one. And this
Mhm.
is the same is here, right? And I can maybe record like 10 episodes today, but I prefer to do like one episode today, two tomorrow, three on the other day, one another day. Or okay, if I have enough time, I can do two, three episodes. But after that, you can feel my voice is tired.
Mm.
And I don't like to do that. And I don't like to have that. Of course, if we listen now a couple of episodes, we can recognize a little bit the differences between them. And you can notice when when it's recorded in the morning or in the evening. But the thing is that, okay, I would like to keep the my personality through my voice, the same one, that you can feel who am who really am I, and that you can feel okay. I would like to talk with this person. I would like to take some advices from her. I would like to follow what she's going to say next week, and something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that because this segues really nicely into a question I had that is very specific to you and your business. But what would you say for those who are listening and want to start their own podcast? How has your podcast fit into your business and your client journey? What's the idea of your podcast inside your business ecosystem?
So the podcast has become another way to people to understand who I am, what I'm doing, what I believe in, and how I work. It allows potential clients to build trust with me before they even reach out. And they can hear my approach, my values, my expertise, some of my like part of my experiences, which creates a deeper connection. And the one important thing that I didn't expect it was that my clients, my actual clients, they are listening the podcast, and couple of times it happened that they mentioning, oh yeah, I heard that you mentioned that thing in the podcast. And I think that today when we have a lot of information, like really easy to access to, and we are overwhelmed, um, we should hear the same message more than 20 times to take an action. So for me, having a podcast is really important for my clients as well, and my future clients. But the thing that I didn't expect it was this one, that my clients will listen to the podcast and notice that, and that we will have this effect, you know.
That's such a great description because you're essentially building trust at scale. Because those clients, those future clients or listeners need to be exposed to your content 20 plus times. But that doesn't mean that for 10 people, you need to repeat that message 200 times because you are talking about your messages once a week in through the podcast format. You're sharing your thoughts on Instagram as well, which is completely fine, but you are with your podcasts or with your voice building trust at scale.
Yeah.
And as I said before, people will filter themselves out, and this might intimidate some, but I think this is really good news for all of us because if you can gauge through a 5 to 10 minute episode whether someone is a good coach for you or not, I think that's great news for them and for you, rather than you having to sit through a 30-minute sales call or a discovery call where you're focused on this trying to establish this one-to-one connection, which is not really it doesn't have to be fruitful every time. And
Yeah.
this way we are saving each other's time, which I think is really selfless.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Now that you have your podcast launched and your this is a part of your routine now, you're enjoying it. I think you're a better person to talk about this than I am because it is more fresh in your mind than for me. So, what would you say to the version of Angela 6 months ago? Like the version who was overthinking all of this, who was thinking about the perfect microphone and the editing and the setup. What would you say to her that would make her go forward faster?
I would tell her, stop waiting for everything to be perfect. You don't need to have every answer before you begin. The idea is already there. You have it. And if something is important for you, find the right support and take the first step. So the process becomes much easier when you don't try to figure everything out alone. And I think the probably my podcast will be still just a project on the table without your support. And as I said a couple of times to you, you really you're the first person who managed my procrastination skills. So I don't know how, but yes, and I think it's most important thing. Our communication was amazing, and sometimes when you're asking me to do something, to prepare something, you were like really strict, but with empathy and warm, because I felt that during the process you were in, as I was, and that we are together on the same boat and we would like to arrive to the same destination. And for me, it was a big, big thing. So thank you.
What a beautiful metaphor to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Angela. I invited you to my show not only because I wanted you to share your firsthand experience, but because I genuinely enjoy talking to you every time, whether we are chit-chatting or whether you're asking me for advice. And I have to say this publicly, I seek for your advice every week on your show because I
Thank
like listening to it. And you are now, for the record, you're now recording episodes by yourself every single week and they come out every Tuesday. So I'm not biased anymore. I really enjoy Angela's conversations and her thoughts and listening to her. And I feel like every week I'm getting to know you as a person more and better. And this is the type of feedback that I really like receiving myself because when you're sharing your thoughts and your knowledge every week on a podcast, you're giving people a piece of yourself, which is very intimate and it is very vulnerable and it can be intimidating. And I just wanted to say for this episode and conversation that Angela and I understand what you're going through. And it is not easy. We never said it was easy. But once you put yourself out there, like once literally, you have to break that barrier once. Then you're in, and it gets so much easier. And as you said in our previous episode, that's the version of me I'm not even thinking about. That's the past version of me, and I need to think of her as my past identity, the identity who was afraid but who did it anyway. So
you.
thank you, Angela, again for being so great and for keeping up with it. I think this is so important.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you very, very much because, as I said, without your support, probably my podcast will be still a project. And the last thing that I would like to share is that sometimes we don't need more time to prepare. We need someone who believes in our idea and who gives us the right structure, the right support, and who gently pushes us forward. That support was a real turning point for me.
This was such a great collaboration and again, such a great conversation. And I hope our listeners will get value out of it because it's realistic, it's out there, we're sharing everything. And I hope it helps someone to break that barrier, to push through and to put themselves out there because there is so much more waiting on the other side compared
Yeah.
to the spot you are at right now. Thank you again.
Me too. Thank you. Bye bye.